It began, as it often does, with a woman putting her ducks in a row. It had occurred to Iris a few weeks back, at the height of summer, when tourists jammed the post office with their oiled bodies and their scattered, childish vacation glee, that if what she thought were going to happen was going to, she ought to be prepared. She ought, really, oughtn't she, to be ready to show Harry that though she was 40, as old as the century, he would be the first, the very first. And she had always put more stock in words set down on a clean white piece of paper than any sort of talk. Talk was, right, said the doctor, turning away to wash his hands. He straightened, turned off the taps, and flicked his fingers against the back basin before taking up the towel beside him. Are you decent, Miss James? He directed the question to the wall in front of him. Not in the least. Right, he said again. I'll see you in my office. For the certificate, she said. Nearly at the door, he paused with his hand outstretched, glancing down at her. She gave him her post office smile, the one she used behind her window, meant to invite cooperation. Yes, he said, and he grasped hold of the handle, pushing it smartly down and pulling open the door. She waited until she heard the latch click softly after him before she rose, holding one hand to the loosened pins in her hair and the other around her front. She felt a bit as she did in the mornings, unbound by bra or girdle, herself come loose. All fine in the security of her own bedroom, but here she was, in the middle of Boston, in one of the discreet buildings fronting the public gardens after lunch on a Thursday in September. On the other side of the door, the steady rhythm of a typewriter clattered through the quiet. The tiles were cool under her feet, and she reached first for her underthings, leaning against the bulkhead as she drew one stocking on, then the next, snapping the garters firmly. Hanging from the back of the chair, the cups of her brassiere pointed straight out into the room, like headlights. She smiled, pulling the bra on, and for the third time that afternoon, she thought of Harry Vale. A single rap came at the door. I'm ready when you are, Miss James. I'll be right in. Everything had been genial. Everything had been perfectly nice. The doctor's office was the sort to glory in. Thick green curtains pulled back from high windows, just skimming a rich gray carpet. The secretary in the outer nook typing away, the hush of order as she had taken Iris's coat and slipped it onto the wooden hanger. And the doctor, just right too. How he'd opened the door and held out his warm hand to her, half as greeting, half as a hand up from where she sat waiting. It had all cracked slightly with her request. Not audibly, but noticeably enough for Iris to recognize that the doctor was going to need some prodding. But the capacious room notwithstanding, Dr. Broad lacked imagination. He was happy to examine her, he told her, leaning back in his chair. But why the piece of paper? I would have thought every man might like to have such a thing, she suggested. Dr. Broad cleared his throat. Perhaps that's a bit familiar of me, she concluded aloud, watching the man across the desk from her inch his hands along the arms of his chair, making as if to rise. Why don't we begin? He smiled, and did rise, bringing the interview to a halt. So she had not had